So this is the question: design experiment to find out whether being brought up with a sibling makes you more empathetic or not. All right, so all right, you need to understand one thing. This is a paper two question 10 question in which you are supposed to design experiment. That question comes for 10 marks. And how to solve this question is that there are certain points you need to address to get these 10 marks, otherwise you won't get them. So the points that you're supposed to address them are one by one as follows. You're supposed to write down the IV and the DV. You're supposed to operationalize them as well. Number two, uh, setting. Number three, sample. And with it, you're gonna write the sampling technique. Is our participant? Who are our participant and how did you get them? Design. We discussed design in depth. Methodology. And how are you gonna get the data? Via questionnaire, as in like via questionnaires, right? Questionnaire forms. Are you gonna do interviews or are you gonna observations? You have a question. What about controls? I'm getting there. That's a good point. So after we did do this, we write ethics, any ethical concerns, controls, the data we're gonna get, is it qualitative or quantitative? And then data analysis. What statistical tool are you gonna use to analyze data? So far in our syllabus, we've done pretty much these and these. We haven't done other than that. So I'm gonna highlight them. So I was not expecting you to go over these things that we missed out. So I want you to like talk about things that we've highlighted. So I'm gonna remove these for now and tell me in terms of this. First of all, what's our IV here and what's our DV here? According to this question, what's gonna be our IV? What's gonna be our DV? What's gonna be our cause? What's gonna be our effect? The independent variables. Yeah. So what's the independent variable and what's the dependent variable? Having a sibling or not is an IV. All right. So like sibling, that's IV level one. No sibling is IV level two, and this combined makes it your IV. And what about a DV? All right. So empathy would be the DV, right? All right. So we need to operationalize it, right? For example, having siblings may mean many things. See, having no siblings means what it means. You don't have any brothers, you don't have any sisters. But having a sibling, right? It's it can be open interpretation. Do you have a brother? Do you have a sister, right? Do you have a younger brother? Do you have a younger sister? We don't know. Do you have more than one sibling? So you need to clarify what do you mean by people who have siblings. What gender are gonna be their sibling? What gender are they gonna be themselves? Uh, are they older than the sibling? Are they younger than the sibling? So you need to choose what do you mean by sibling. You need to operationalize it. You need to specifically define what you mean by the siblings they have. So how would you do that? All right, having more sibling, different sibling could trigger different. All right, so again, having more sibling, having different sibling could trigger something different empathy. So what do we mean by a sibling? Sibling is a brother or sister, right? It is a brother or a sister. See, there's already a confusion when we define sibling. It's either a brother or a sister. So you're supposed to, I don't know, specify between a brother and a sister. Number two, is it gonna be an elder sister or a elder brother or younger sister or younger brother? You're supposed to kind of specifically define what sort of sibling they're gonna have. So what sort of siblings are we looking at? Brother, sister, younger, older, which one? Let's take older sister. All right, nice, nice. So older sister, older sister that is operationalized. All right, no sibling makes sense. It's operationalized as well because no siblings cannot be open interpretation. No siblings means no siblings. There's no question of brother sister. Empathy. All right. Now we need to define empathy as well because so how can you define empathy in a manner that is objective and is not going to be confused by other researchers of what empathy means, and also in a manner that it can be replicated in other experiments so that people can measure empathy in the same manner. So how would you define empathy like that? That is going to be clear and it's going to be objective and it's going to be replicable as in there's no confusion how people are going to measure empathy if they want to replicate your experiment. Uh, if this, if by this question having sibling makes you an empath, no, 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 that's not what I meant. It's, what I mean is like, what do you mean by empathy, right? Because empathy to you have different meaning. Empathy to me has different meanings. Empathy to some third person has different meaning. So what do you mean by empathy? So you need to define empathy in a manner that's objective. You need to bring some objectivity into defining empathy. As in you're gonna say something numerical. You're also gonna define in a manner that is gonna be easy to replicate. For example, you can say empathy, soft-heartedness. All right, soft-heartedness. Now, can we numerically measure soft-heartedness, and is it easy to replicate? We cannot. So, like, we're gonna write something like this. Empathy is our DV, and then we write, comma, it is going to be operationalized through through a questionnaire on which people scoring more than 5 will be classified as having high. mm, Is this definition clear and objective and replicable? How though? All right. So as a psychologist, right? Empathy is a concept. Now, my job is to not define empathy in terms of dictionary meaning, as in what is the philosophical definition of what empathy is. My job would be to define empathy in a manner that is going to make it measurable, right? And that is also going to make it possible for other psychologists to replicate how I measure empathy in their own manner. I'm not going, my job as a psychologist is right now not to define empathy in its philosophical form. How will we make it measurable? Here, questionnaire on which people scoring more than 5 are going to have high levels of empathy, less than 5 are going to have low levels of empathy. So I'm going to say that on a questionnaire, people have more than 5, high empathy. Less than five, low empathy. And that's how I make it measurable. I'm going to use a questionnaire to measure, to quantify a concept. Is there still any confusion regarding how did we make it measurable? Or is everything clear regarding how did we make it measurable? I'm confused. All right. Remember the concept of temperature? As in, what does temperature mean? If temperature was our degree, how would we define it? We said that above 100 degrees would be hot temperature, below 100 degrees would be cold temperature, right? You remember that? Because if we just say hot and cold without without mentioning numeric values, people could write their own definition. Some would say 50 is hot. Some would say like 50 is cold and 80 is hot, right? So we don't want that. So that's why we ourselves gave a specific value that 100 and above is hot and less than 100, as in starting from 99, is cold. Remember that regarding temperature? So the same concept is going to be applicable. Think of temperature as empathy, right? So we want to find out whether they have high levels of empathy or low levels of empathy. Low levels of empathy would automatically translate to having no empathy at all, right? The lowest level is going to mean no empathy. So how can we say a person has high levels of empathy, right? So high empathy, low empathy, just like high temperature, low temperature, we're going to have to set up a numerical margin, right? You have to set up a numerical cutoff criteria. So we're going to say that instead of for temperature, it's going to be 100, right? For empathy, I'm going to, like, for example, for temperature, you're going to use thermostat, right? A thermostat or a scale to measure temperature. So for empathy, I'm going to use a questionnaire to measure. I'm going to say people who have empathy of 5 and above have more empathy, and 5 and below have less empathy. Like the temperature, having 100 above is hot temperature, and below 100 is cold temperature. That's how I did it. Is there still any confusion regarding how did we? All right. So by looking over here, right, when I say I'm going to use a questionnaire to which I'm going to measure people's empathy, on which people more than five on this questionnaire are going to be regarded as high empathy, less than five are low empathy. So by this, I have to prepare myself. So I know that I have to describe or have to detail a questionnaire in the experiment as well. I'm going to have to tell what this questionnaire is because unlike temperature, right? Everyone knows how temperature is supposed to be measured. It's objective, right? You take okay, I forgot uh, the thermostat scale. For empathy, there are many ways to measure empathy, right? And even if I come up with a questionnaire, there's many questionnaires available that can measure empathy, right? So people would not readily recognize what this questionnaire means. So whenever you operationalize a concept within the DV, right? For example, empathy, it can be social intelligence, it can be intelligence itself, it can be a, what you call it, analytical skills, anything, anger, stress, depression. and you're going to use a questionnaire to operationalize it, right? Even if you give the criteria, you're going to have to detail it. Now we need around 10 questions. No, not 10. I think four are enough. Four are enough. For example, if four questions that you write down make sense, it's okay. So if you write four questions as an example of how you would measure empathy, and you're going to keep those questions generic, it should just make sense that it measures empathy. Four questions are more than enough. So moving on, after you operationalize the IVMDB, now you're going to have to tell me the setting. Where is this the experiment going to be conducted? So where are you going to conduct the experiment? Whether having a sibling, uh, but five being, yeah. See, I know that five is our cutoff skill, but we won't write 10 questions, we won't write five questions because we're not writing, or we won't write the outcome of what happened in our result, what happened as our result. But we're gonna write what's gonna happen, right? We're not gonna write what happened as well. We're not gonna go all the way to the results. We're gonna write a guideline of what's the person supposed to do, right? And you're right that we should logically write all 10 questions or all the questions there are on the scale for empathy, right? But we're not going to do that because CI does not require us to write all the questions. If they say that if you write four questions that make sense, is good enough to go. And they're going to presume the other question. They're going to assume the other question themselves because we don't have to write what result we got. We don't have to write the result. We don't have to write the outcome. We just have to write what did we do. That's it. No results. All right. So what about the setting? Where is this going to be conducted? Uh, Remember, there are three settings: lab, field setting, naturalistic setting. You're supposed to define it in terms of that. All right, it's gonna be in a lab. So when you write lab setting, so it's gonna be in a lab setting. All right, now sample. Who are your participants? As in who are your participants and how many? So who are your participants? Give me details. How many? Give me details. Sampling technique. How did you get the number, opportunity, volunteer, and random sampling? Out of which one did you choose, and how did you conduct it? So sample. Who are your sample, and how many? Both males and females. All right. So you chose males and females, 10 and 10. That's it. Just males and female, or are there anything else that you would like to tell me about your sample? You told me gender. There has to be something else too. Remember, we're talking in relation to their siblings, right? So, all right, so you chose basically you chose 10 male and 10 female who are gonna be the younger siblings to their sister, all right, their younger siblings. And is that it, or is there anything else which you'd like to mention? You mentioned the relationship. What else do you need to consider when you talk about siblings? Tell me they're younger, yes, but tell me how much younger they are and age. Yes, age. What's their age and how much younger are they? All right, above 10, who are above 10, and how much younger are they from their siblings? What's the age gap between them and their siblings? 5 years younger. So see, this is the demographic criteria you need to mention, and this varies according to experiment. Sometimes you cannot be generic just by mentioning male and female. There are other things that you need to mention as well. All right. So how did you get them? There are three methods. Either they came to you, volunteer sampling, or you went to them and got them, opportunity sampling, or random sampling. But random sampling requires you to have their names, all of them, and then you call them at random, which is very difficult to obtain. Opportunity sampling. So you went to them and got them. So where were they located that you got them? From which area did you get them? How did you get them? And so what to look at school. All right, so you from opportunity sampling from a local school where both the siblings study. All right, that's it. Yep, yep. All right, design. Now design. I just want to make sure you understand there are three types of designs. Random, sorry, not random. Independent matrix design, repeated matrix design, and matched pair. Right? Now, first tell me this. You told me the sample of people who have siblings. What about the people who don't have siblings? Aren't they your part of your experiment too? So aren't they gonna be in the sample as well? So they're not gonna be part of your sample? People who don't have siblings? So you need to write them in your sample too. And you're gonna choose 10 males, 10 females who are gonna be above 5 but have no siblings. So in regards, you have 40 people in your study, and they're gonna be opportunity sampling from school, as well as where none of the siblings study. She got them from the same school. Now design. Ask. I want you to answer me this. Are you gonna have two separate groups of people, or are you gonna have an experiment where a person can take part in both groups? Remember, what is your classification of people? First, identify what on what basis are you grouping your people. They will be separate. So you're gonna be grouping people in basis of what? What's gonna be your group based upon? Group number one is gonna be called what, and group number two is gonna be called what? Right. And see, the best way to figure out your design is look at the IV levels. If you feel that sibling person cannot come in no sibling group, then obviously it's gonna be a separate group. So if you have one person taking part in one group or one condition, what design it's gonna be? Which design are we gonna apply? What's the design called? Independent, repeated, and matched pair. Out of three, which one? All right. It's gonna be independent, right? Independent. Future reference, if you feel that one person can be only in one group, it's gonna be independent majors. All right. Controls. All right. So this is your design done. So what else are you gonna consider that could be external variables? What other factors could affect empathy other than having siblings or not? And how would you control them? What factors you need to control? Uh, all right. So you need to control that no participants have a traumatic relationship with their siblings. Psychological. Oh, apart from that, are you making sure that everyone's ages are same? Because if you change ages, that could be a problem. All right. So what about the ages of people? You said that both having siblings people and not having siblings people should be above 10. So you made the ages same for both group as well, right? All right. And also with regards to what sibling you would have, you said that we're gonna study people who only have an older sister. So people, if we mix people who having older sister and brother, could that be a problem? If we included older sister and brothers, mixing it up by like neutralizing the sibling to one gender and one birth order, like older sister, not younger. We're not even mixing younger and older. We're sticking to older sister. So do you think by like specifying what siblings are you gonna have? What? No, I said there will be both. As in what? All right. So answer me this. We have a group called sibling, right? We had a group called siblings versus no sibling. Do you think by mixing older and younger siblings, we won't be able to differentiate the groups? Because it could be that people having older siblings might differentiate on empathy, and people having younger siblings themselves might differentiate empathy. Do you think it's good to mix up both older and younger siblings? Or it's okay to have one set of people who have older siblings so we don't get mixture of empathy between them? As in, you could have an older sibling, your empathy might be different. I could have a younger sibling, and my empathy could be different. So, could having an older or younger sibling could differentiate empathy in that regard as well? Or do you think it won't matter? Do you think having an older sibling and younger sibling could that differentiate? We'll be taking younger siblings with both. Uh, we'll be taking younger siblings. What? We'll be taking younger people. Okay. 10 having older brothers and 10 having older sisters. So, all right. Now, based on that, I'm going to ask you this. You said that there's going to be 10 people who have an older brother, 10 people who have an older sister, right? Now, my question would be, what is going to be the gender of the participants? Because because a girl can have a sister, a girl can have a brother. A brother can have a boy can have an older sister, a boy can have an older brother. So would we then need to like divide person on that gender as well? Because the gender of the person to what their sibling is could also affect their empathy. Five boys with sisters and five boys with sisters and five girls with sister and vice versa. Five boys with sister, five boys with. All right, so you need to mention that in your demographics, right? And trust me, the more you get scattered over here, right? For example, we stuck with one. Now, if you want to include every possible combination of sibling there is, the more scattered your sample is gonna be. Now, there's no problem in that, but you now the thing that you're risking is you're gonna be very specific of how you define your sample. That if you even miss out one criteria, your sample is gonna be flawed. So you have to be very careful in selecting the diverse sampling that you're gonna select. So over here, do you wanna stick with older sister or you wanna diversify? I don't, what do we do and how will we do that? As in, could you like elaborate? On how do we get into, uh, hold on, like I'm having trouble understanding question. Agree them to do what? All right. So the question is not whether they agree or not. The question is the problem right here is this one. Whether, see, when you say siblings, there are possible outcomes. Number one, the gender of the siblings, right? Is it going to be a brother or is it going to be a sister? The second outcome is going to be the age, sorry, the birth order. Are they the younger or older? Third is going to be the gender of the sibling. Are they a boy or a girl? So based on this combination, what you're going to have is something, you're going to have a brother who is going to be younger, who is going to be a boy themselves. You're going to have a brother who is going to be who's going to be younger, but they're going to be a girl themselves. Same for sis. All right, same for brother again. Brother, older, this time, boy, girl. So for brothers, we have four categories, right? And the same is gonna apply for sisters as well. Now, when we like mention all possible combination of siblings, right? What you're gonna have is a very diversified sample that you would need to make sure that you address all possible combinations of siblings in your study because right now what we did was we stuck with one category. Sure. Younger uh, girl, older. And we said that, see, our initial thought was we would take an people who have an older sister. So we were gonna take these people. You said 10 of them and 10 of them, right? But now when you said that we're gonna take people who have brothers and sisters both, so people who have brothers and sisters both, and not only that, we're gonna take people who have younger brothers and older brothers as well. So what you're gonna do right now is you're gonna make sure every combination of people are gonna be selected. So instead of writing these people demographic over here, for example, look at this, right? 10 males and 10 females who are younger siblings. So not only that, we have specified people who are younger siblings. So we won't take people who are older, we're going to take people who are younger.
10 from here, 10 from here. For younger siblings who are 5 years younger, that's it. But right now, when you said that we're gonna take every single people who are brothers as well and sisters as well, is gonna create a lot of diverse combinations. So are you sure you want to select them? First question. Or you want to stay with people who are younger to their sisters? See, our problem is not agreeing them. Our problem is not getting them to agree with us. Our problem is getting them in the first way because we require so many people with different bunch of characteristics, which is now is gonna be a bit more tedious because we're choosing to include brothers who are younger, brothers who are older, sisters who are younger, and sisters who are older, who are a girl and a boy, and a girl and a boy themselves. I said we'll only take younger siblings. All right. I said we'll only take younger siblings. Now, younger siblings, all right. Younger siblings having which sort of sibling? A sister or brother? All right. See, now you said you're gonna take younger siblings who have a sister and a brother. So we would not need to write a demographic variable for here and a demographic variable for here. Initially, we only selected people who qualify for this characteristic, not this. So you need to again go back to your sample and redefine the selection criteria. Because right now we have people who are younger siblings to their sister. So you need to just kind of tweak the demographics to get the people who are younger to their brother as well. So how many people would you need then? 40. So 10 from here and 10 from here. All right, remember when I said that you need to operationalize your IV? Remember that? This is exactly what we mean because siblings can mean so many things, right? Siblings could mean many, many things. So we have to be specific in regarding what do we mean by a sibling, right? That's what we mean by operationalization. Specifically, tell me what sort of sibling are we interacting with. So your objective definition of a sibling, according to experiment, would be what then? People who, you don't understand. See, these people are our blood related. So siblings could mean many things according to this criteria. But in our experiment, what type of sibling are we selecting? Specifically mention that. So I need you to operationally define a sibling based on what our experiment is all about. Who are we selecting in our experiment? See, well, if we leave open-ended, these many combinations will pop up. And we don't want all the combination, we want very selective combinations. So by sibling, we're gonna say people who are either people who are either and themselves are and are of. Again, what I mean is siblings could mean all of this. But the table of combinations that I made, siblings could mean every single criteria of sibling. What means we could have a brother who is younger and who themselves is a boy, or a brother, someone who has a brother who themselves is a younger girl. There's many possible combinations of siblings that we can have. So we don't want that, do we? We don't want every type of sibling there is. We want a very selective few type of siblings. So in our experiment, when we say siblings, we mean people who are what? Younger. All right, younger and 5 years smaller than us. All right, so you just met this criteria, younger. So when we say younger, I'm still open to interpretation, right? Do I, when we say younger, right? Do I want a younger person who is a brother, themselves a girl? So you need to define these boxes as well. So then complete definition is people, siblings who either have an older, uh, either are a younger sibling of a brother who is sister themselves. So when I say this definition right here, do you think it matches all the four boxes that I need to match? Siblings themselves who are either themselves are a younger sibling of a brother or a sister and themselves are either a boy or girl. So do you think by saying this, all right, so that's what you mean by operational definition. Like you need to specifically tell me exactly, tell the experimenter what sort of people or siblings I mean by siblings, right? That's what operational definition means. So it is difficult, but it is tedious, but that's what specifically defining things mean. So now that we have our sample, now we have our design, right? Controls. You said that people would not have past traumas. People are psychologically well themselves. Their siblings are well. What else did you kind of control? Did you think the age difference from siblings would have been a factor, but you chose it to keep it same, right? You chose it to keep it 5 years for every single person. So do you think by keeping it same, you kind of control the extraneous variable of age difference? All right, so like age gap, you kind of control them. You also control their birth order as well, because if we had mixture of people who are younger and older, so do you think people who are younger and older could them have different empathy levels? Siblings who are older, so you kind of kept it the same by keeping people who are younger in relations. So like younger in relation to their sibling. So these are the extraneous variables that you chose to control. So like you need to mention at least like three controls, like get a point. Mention this one, you mentioned this one, you mentioned the age gap, and then you mentioned the relation to their sibling. So that's it. So that's how you design an experiment. There are more parts. Obviously, we have to tell you what the questionnaire is. We have to tell other aspects of All right, and apart from that, you have to tell the data that you're gonna get and how you gonna conduct data analysis. And we're gonna get into now the methodology, as in how are you gonna collect data. That's what something we're gonna start right now. Before we move on, is everything that we discussed over here clear? Not all right, apart from this, like this is what we're going to discuss right now. So this hasn't been discussed. Apart from that, all right. So now we're going to dive on to what's methodology is. So in your A level vocabulary, methodology means basically how will you data, and then how will you get or how will you record your responses? So in your syllabus, there are three types. Either you're gonna conduct interviews from people, or you're gonna make them fill out questionnaires, forms, or you're gonna observe them. There's three ways, and all of the three types have their own subtypes. So because we talked about questionnaires right now in this example question, so we're gonna start off with questionnaires. All right. So when you talk about questionnaires, basically it means a paper, pencil, or an online form where people give out their responses. Basically, the response is either written, if it's paper, pencil, or typed. They don't say it. Anything that's written or typed is going to be known as a questionnaire. Now there are two types. It can be either closed-ended or open-ended. Do you know what closed and open-ended itself means? Are you familiar with those terms? Closed and open-ended. Yes. Could you like kind of elaborate on it then? Closed being a simple yes or no question, and open-ended would be a descriptive statement. All right, you're right about that. Closed being a simple yes and no, and open being a simple, like dash. So you can write whatever you want. All right. There are other formats of closed-ended questionnaires as well. I don't know, like if you remember your biology or physics or chemistry paper, MCQ questions, right? MCQ, you get those MCQs. These are also closed-ended questions, and your short answer statement questions that you get is open-ended. So you can either have an MCQ format as well. So there could be more than two choices as well. So, but in psychology, rather than yes or no, you get something else. In psychology, there are two type of mostly used closed-ended questionnaire format. And the two are either a rating scale or a Likert scale. And I'm going to tell you what these are. Rating scale is, let's suppose there's a question, rate your sadness from 0 to 10. So this question is a rating scale where you're supposed to give a answer based on a numerical rating. That's a rating scale where your answer is going to be a numerical rating, right? The higher the number, the more sadness you're going to feel. The lesser the number, less sadness you're going to feel. That's a rating scale. Likert scale or something else. Likert scales have standard, like sometimes they have 5 options, sometimes they have 7 options. So it could be like one could be none at all, two could be sometime, three could be on and off, three, four could be regularly, and five could be always. Have you seen these type of answer formats that you're supposed to answer from one till five, and each numerical answer has a statement beside it? So these are called Likert scale. Likert scale have basically you are supposed to answer, but every number has a description besides it. Rating scales don't have a description beside every single number, it's just 0 to 10. Likert scale are going to have description besides a number. So that's it. That's a Likert scale, right? Rating. So we commonly use these two. So let's suppose we go back to our question originally, where you said you would use a questionnaire, right? Uh, Empathy is going to be operationalized through a questionnaire on which people scoring more than five will be classified as people having high empathy, less than five would have low levels of empathy. So I'm going to ask you this one question, right? Are you going to use a closed-ended questionnaire here or an open-ended questionnaire here based on what you wrote here? Less than five, more than five. Open and closed. All right, open and closed. All right. All right. Based on your response, I'm going to discuss open-ended questions as well. All right. So uh, think of it this way. If the question is tell me about your sadness, or rather tell me how empathetic you are, right? And let's suppose you're giving three chances. So you can rate it either from 0 to 10. You can either fill the Likert scale or you can write an open-ended question. So on the rating scale, what numeric value would you choose from 0 to 10 regarding your empathy? How much empathetic are you? From on a scale of 0 to 10, how much empathetic are you? Answer it in terms of our Likert scale. Oh, sorry, rating scale. This one is a rating scale, right? This one is the rating scale. So on this, what would you answer? All right, so you said 7. All right, over here, if it was a Likert scale, right, what would you choose? Same question. 3 on and off. Right, so you selected this one. And if it was an open-ended question, and same question, tell me how empathetic you are. And if you could write anything, what would you have written? Moderately, right? All right, so like you wrote moderately. That is your descriptive answer. Now I'm gonna ask you this. You wrote 7 here, right? You selected 3 here, and you write moderately here. These are your responses. I'm gonna ask you this. Based on what I have written here, right? Having more than 5 empathy, less than 5 empathy. My criteria is more than 5 is are gonna have empathy high, less than 5 are low on empathy, right? That's my criteria. That I have I said. You have use a rating scale.
7. You said Likert scale. 3. You said on an open-ended question, moderately. These are your three responses. Now, based on the criteria of having more than 5 empathy, less than 5 low empathy, which options help me here to find out whether you have empathy or not, and which option here does not tell me whether you have high empathy or not? Which one is of no use over here? Rating scale is what? Valid. All right. And if you were to remove the rating scale, you have two more, Likert and open-ended question. Which one can I use here to answer the question whether you have high empathy? Open-ended question. Well, technically not, because moderately does not have a numerical value attached to it. Moderately means moderately. I don't know if moderately means 1, moderately means 2, moderately means 3 or 5, 6, 7. I don't know. It just means moderately, right? So it's a wording, not a numeric. So therefore, if I look at moderately, I cannot answer the question whether you have more than 5 or less than 5. That's the problem we have with open-ended questions, that we cannot convert them into numbers. So if I am judging something in terms of quantity, my go-to questions would be either a Likert scale or a rating scale. Never ever an open-ended question. Is that clear? If I want to define my results in terms of values, numbers, if I want numbers at the end of my results, then I'll go for rating scale or a Likert scale, because open-ended questions give me description, and descriptions cannot be converted into numbers. What does a Likert scale stand for? Likert scale stands for where you have words, but with words you have a numerical option attached to it. Rating scales don't have only numbers, no words attached to it. Open-ended questions only have words, no numbers attached to it. The Likert scale has words, right, but also has numbers attached to it. So I can convert whatever you selected here into a numeric value. For example, you selected on and off, right? On and off has a value of 3. So I can convert your answer into 3. That's what Likert scale is. Rating scale is simply 0 to 0 to 10, no words in it. Open-ended questions has only words, no numerical value attached to, because even if you write something here, the preferred model for experiment would be a Likert scale, right? In this case, yes. So depends on the experiment's outcome. If you look at here, our result is going to be based on people having more than 5, less than 5. So my criteria is numerical, 5. So there's two scales that are going to help me get this. It's either going to be a rating scale or a Likert scale. So two things can be valid here. So whenever you give an example question, when you form a questionnaire, your questions are supposed to be designed according to a rating scale format or a Likert scale format. If you give an open-ended question, that's not going to give you a numeric answer. So therefore it won't be usable here because it doesn't have a numeric value. Is that clear? Are like, are you positive, or is there still any confusion left? So based on right now, you might be thinking that, like wherever we discussed so far, closed-ended questionnaires would be a good way to go. Likert scale and a rating scale is most favored, but that's not true. They are.